We didn't cut spending at all. We didn't cut spending at all.
Because we attempted
but that's just not true because we did not cut spending.
That kind of economic...
Liz Truss did not cut spending.
That kind of... Well...
If you want to know exactly what the establishment thinks of you, watch this video. We have reached a point where a TV pundit is actually sitting on national television telling struggling British pensioners that demanding a general election is, and I am not joking, helping Vladimir Putin. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps us to grow. Now let's watch this together, and then I'll share my thoughts at the end.
1 million British citizens have signed a petition to say they want change. They want this government to be changed. What's interesting is polling of even those that supported Labour at the election in 2024 are actually saying that they do not like this government and also want change. So, I mean, I think that this government have been an absolute shambles. They promised not to raise taxes, very specific taxes, and they broke every single promise that they announced in 2024.
They didn't do that.
They broke the promises on national insurance contributions. They broke the promises on tax rises. They have failed to reduce public spending. The economic crisis facing Great Britain today is enormous. Public spending as a proportion of GDP is now at about 45%. That means that half of the economy is the government. That is absolutely astronomical, and it isn't affordable because we're going to see public spending increase this year and next year and the year after. So we're going to see tax rises this year and next year and the year after because we cannot afford the current level.
Again, just devil's advocate, Labour are elected on a manifesto knowing when the next general election is going to come, and they haven't had their full term yet.
But they're breaking manifesto pledges. They are breaking what they were voted to do.
Actually, that isn't strictly speaking true. And I think you're perfectly entitled to, and there'll be many people who share your view that they don't like this government, frustrated by this government. You're perfectly entitled to feel that way, and many, many people will. The idea that they've broken manifesto pledges, manifestos actually, they're not legally binding anyway. And maybe they should be. I think that's another interesting conversation. The government actually have gone out of their way not to break manifesto pledges to their detriment. I mean, Rachel Reeves has tied herself in knots around her fiscal rules and around not raising things like VAT and income tax. National insurance rises were on the employer side rather than employee side.
But the unintended consequences of that are less jobs. I'm sorry, no, I don't buy this argument.
I wouldn't necessarily disagree.
You increase taxes on hiring people and you get less people in jobs. Unemployment is higher, less people are in work. 1 in 4 working age people do not work. That is a national disgrace, and it's this government's fault.
But perfectly entitled to believe that. Probably a truth in it. I do think that national insurance rise was probably the wrong thing to do. But very, very specifically, that wasn't a manifesto breach, and it doesn't necessarily lead us to have...
I'd vote for the previous government, Conservative, which is excellent, in my opinion. But, you see, this government really, I think, has demonstrated what probably a lot of people suspected. They're a government of high taxation, whereas I recall the Conservative government said people should be able to keep as much of their own...
Solution here, reduce public spending. We don't need to perpetually increase taxes because, quite frankly, there will be a point where the private sector disappears.
Right.
We are heading down a path towards socialism, and I think it's really dangerous. Why in Britain do we not have growth? We don't have economic growth. What does that mean? It means people aren't at work. It means the pound in your pocket is worth less and less. You can get less for it because the economy isn't growing. The government have increased the size significantly every single day, and that's the problem. So here's what I'd do. I'd abolish the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. I would reduce public spending on pensions. I would say if you are a millionaire, you don't get a state pension. I would say that if you are in work and you have lost your job, then you can get unemployment benefits. If you are offered a job and you refuse it, your benefits are revoked. I think that there are so many aspects of this where the government can
yes,
can I just point out that we did try quite a lot of that sort of libertarian approach, that laissez-faire approach to the economy.
We've never tried.
We had a budget in 2022 that did that, and it was overseen by a guy called Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss. And
what I'd like to say is,
the market's freaked, and we are all poor.
We didn't cut spending.
My mortgage costs more because we attempted
that's just not true because we did not cut spending.
That kind of economic.
Liz Truss did not cut spending.
That kind of but she wanted to. I mean, you can't do that, can you?
But she didn't.
She ran into exactly.
She
ran into exactly the problem that you would run into, which is that you've got the reality of providing public services.
I've just said you cut spending. She did not do that, so you cannot say what she did was libertarian. She actually increased public spending with the energy price guarantee.
She took a chainsaw to the rules of economics, as you would want to do. The markets reacted, and we're all poor.
Mick in Leeds, do you think it's time for a general election?
Yes, I think it's time for a general election. Well, the first thing is Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer should resign because they are complete and utterly useless. U-turn after U-turn. They attack the elderly. They've attacked the disabled people. He's failed on Trump. Wales is an absolute disgrace. He's not condemned that. Basically, the first thing is if he hasn't got the guts to resign, then yes, we need a general election. I would personally vote for either the Greens or Lib Dems because they have the honesty and integrity to call out things which are wrong. Mm-hmm. What we need in our politics is trust in Labour. They've let us down on every turn, and it's just unacceptable. So, you know, it is time for a general election if they haven't got the honesty and integrity to resign.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you very much, Mick. Darryl, do you want to come back?
Nothing you have said there, Mick, convinces me that we need a general election, i.e. there is no constitutional crisis. And as I refer to my earlier point, which is really, really important, which is that there are countries around the world who want to disrupt Western democracies, and us being able to demonstrate that we have a democracy that functions, where you, by the way, Mick, are perfectly entitled to believe all of those things, to feel those things, to vote at the opportunities you get them in local elections and mayoral elections and in the next general election, and to come on television programmes like this and make that point as passionately as you have. That is what a liberal democracy is about. But we have to stick to the structures of that liberal democracy, and we cannot just throw the baby out with the bathwater, have a general election and make a point to those rogue states that Western democracy isn't.
And if the populace can't see that, then this populace is actually a lot thicker and more stupid than I would have said. You know, England.
Well, I have always voted, along with the rest of my family and grandparents, for a Conservative government. Labour have always, but absolutely always, screwed it up in one way or another. You've got you've got Brown selling off the gold reserves at the ridiculous amount of money that was lost through that was unbelievable. So I think somebody left a note once saying, sorry, there's no money left.
Yeah, for sure. Look, and this kind of push and pull between tax and spend is the political conversation we have had for generations and we will have for generations to come. The fact of the matter is that we had an election in 2024, Alan, and you lost. And you are entitled to go again in a couple of years' time and have another go. One of the most important elements of a democracy, though, Alan, is that you are gracious in defeat, that you accept the other side won and you give them the opportunity to govern. And when the time comes around again for another election, which there will be one, you have another chance to have a go at it. That is important for the integrity of democracy. A peaceful transfer of power and grace in defeat is a cornerstone of the integrity of this institution that is democracy that we have.
Gracious in defeat. That was the line that summed it all up. Darryl Morris sits there in a warm studio telling Alan, who remembers the economic ruin of previous Labour governments, that he needs to just accept it. But notice the desperation in their arguments. When Derek brought up cutting spending, what happened? Panic. Immediate pivot to Liz Truss. It is the only card they have left to play. They cannot defend their own tax rises, so they just shout Liz Truss as like a magic spell to shut down the debate. And then, the lowest point, the claim that holding our government accountable is somehow doing the work of Russia. This is a dangerous narrative. They are trying to frame democratic dissent as treason. If you complain about the borders, you're far right. If you complain about the economy, you're helping Putin. And let's not forget the caller, Anne, who said if you don't support this, you aren't thick and stupid. That is the genuine view of the London liberal class. They think you're too stupid to understand why you should be poor. I want to know what you think. Is asking for an election undemocratic, or is it the only way to save this country? Let me know in the comments below.